Welcome to Mr. International, for the dreamers who feel too much and want way more. I'm a lawyer who hates being a lawyer, and this podcast is my exit plan. Mr. International is a self-help travelogue for empaths, wanderers, and anyone craving freedom from a life that, well, doesn't quite fit. I'm trading courtrooms for countries, burnout for balance, and skepticism for the law of attraction. Each episode unpacks the emotional side of travel, mindset shifts, manifesting a new path, and what it really takes to rewrite your story. One passport stamp and perspective change at a time. What is up, everybody? Mr. International back up here in the Heezy. I know I promised to pump out episodes every day and that didn't happen, but hey, here I am. I've been going in a deep dive recently, found a new little hobby, which is learning about all of this AI stuff that you keep hearing about. And it's incredible and it's scary. And what's even scarier is the fact that the stuff I'm looking at and everything all these AI platforms can do it's just in its infancy. One thing I worry about is that, the fact that you can just tell a computer to do something and it'll literally create an entire song for you with the lyrics off of just a few ideas in your head is kind of scary. Like, it makes me wonder what's going to happen to the creative part of people's brains now that that's going to start getting outsourced to computer software. So let's see what happens. But anyways, last week was a bit of a rough week. I just got back and it was like I got back to some nonsense. We had this complete asshole of a guy. We had done it. This is why the legal profession can be tough. It's always the same. It's always the same routine. It's always family members of your clients that take a shit on you. And they always think they know more than you, even though half the time they didn't even finish grade 2. So we got an incredible result for this girl, for her case. She ended up walking away with, normally a client's going to walk away with like 30-40% of their settlement. This girl walks away with like 70%. I think I mentioned this in my other podcast, but her dad, who had just been a complete nightmare, like, let's put it this way. She signed the release. It was all done. And then he comes back to us saying he wants to get more money from her, even though we'd gotten a spectacular result for her based on like the figures and her minimal injuries and such. And this is the kind of loser we're dealing with. And this loser ends up getting a check from the insurance company. They accidentally mailed it to his house, and he tries to cash it. So you can see what kind of a fucking crook this guy is. But anyways, just the whole experience with this guy like rubbed me the wrong way. He went online, said some bad shit, which, it shouldn't affect me, but I guess it still does, which is part of my journey. And part of my journey is learning how to, and it's taken me many years to get here. Things like that would normally bother me for like a month. I'd lose sleep. Then after years, it bothered me for a week. Then after years, it bothered me for a day. And nowadays, it only bothers me for a few minutes. Because the good thing is, and this is very important for you to know, is people like this never operate in, they don't operate in a bubble. They operate like this with everybody that they interact with. And so their lives, that also means, imagine if you are always acting like this, that means you have no friends usually, or the friends you have are probably crappy like that person is. And life's probably miserable. And so you're going to find that other people want you to feel their emotions. These are what sometimes we call them narcissistic empaths, but I've always coined the term emotional drive-bys, where people that have shitty lives want you to have a shitty life with them. And that's why it's really, really, really important to be careful who you let in your space. I've actually made my social circle smaller and smaller and smaller over the years. Like I used to love going out. I couldn't wait to hang out with people. I was looking for every social opportunity I could to go mingle. Even if I had to drive all the way to another city, an hour and a half away, I would do it, get dressed up, whatever. now at this stage of my life, and I'm making myself sound like I'm old, but I don't think I am. Uh, you just kind of like, you're over it, and you start appreciating just a really tight circle. And I think that's pretty common with a lot of people. Like over time, you just kind of start enjoying your personal space more and enjoying your time alone or with just like your loved ones. And so, with that being said, today's podcast, that's my big ass intro. Today's podcast is about not letting other people's emotions control yours. Because if you let that happen, if you let somebody having a bad day take a shit on you and then you have a bad day, what you're really saying is that your day and how your mood is contingent upon what somebody else's mood is and what's going on in their life. And that's terrible, because that means you're basically telling the universe you have absolutely no control over who you are or your emotions, to the point where a complete stranger can say one thing and control you. And just think of that. Imagine if I told you, just put it on paper for a second here. Imagine if I said to you, a complete stranger can control you any way they want with your emotions. You'd probably say, what are you talking about? Nobody can mess with me. I'm a free thinker, etc. But just think about it. How many times has somebody cut you off in traffic and it's pissed you off for half a day? A coworker said something to you and it bothered you all day. But just if you take a deep dive on that, do you realize how much power you're giving away to somebody that's basically a stranger? I mean, yeah, you can have friends and stuff, but a lot of the time when these things happen, it's like somebody that you don't even know very well that will do something that affects you the most. And you have to really ask yourself, well, what's up with that? What is it about you? Forget the other person, right? Because every day, if you wanted to, you can meet somebody that's rude, especially, in a big city like LA or whatever, where people are always in a rush and, everybody's angry all the time about who knows what. It becomes very difficult. It would become very difficult for you to live or even ever leave your house or even answer a phone call, because you'd always be walking on pins and needles, praying that somebody doesn't do something to you or is rude to you in a way that affects you. Now, being so strong that nothing affects you is much easier said than done. My mom used to always tell me, like, you can't let other people affect you. And I tried for years, and I've been trying like to not. And it took a lot of turning points to get to a place where I don't even acknowledge that I'm fully there yet, but I'm way, way better than I used to be. That's for sure. And with that being said, it's like, you just have to like keep trying. And the thing is, you may not see progress quickly. And that's the frustrating part. I know there are a lot of times where I just, in a way, I did give up. Like I definitely, instead of banging my head against the wall repeatedly, trying to not let people's words hurt me or what have you, I started withdrawing a lot, which in a way is one way of running away, but also you have to protect yourself, right? There's a self-preservation angle to it. If you're trying to do something and accomplish something and you keep achieving the same result, or you think you are achieving the same result, and that result ends up in you feeling hurt, then it's very important that you at least take some remedial measures, because you also don't want to get stressed out every single day and hurt yourself while you're trying to develop yourself. So as an example, like I used to practice a lot of bankruptcy law, and I just was getting so sick and tired of the type of clients I was dealing with. You're dealing with people where like you'd ask, like I've told you before, I'd ask them for their tax returns from 2024, and they would send me a tax return from 2 pages of a tax return from 2005. And you're like, no. And it's in very simple terms. I need a tax return from 2024, your full federal and state tax returns with all the pages. And then they would proceed to send you 3 pages from a tax return from 2019 now. And it's just like, it's easy to get frustrated. But then you'd have like the clients who are going through some other thing in their life and they start getting angry with you. Like, I think also mentioned this story in a previous podcast where like I recently had this daughter getting angry with me about why her mom's case is taking so long to get prepared, even though it's 100,000% her mom's fault because her mom has no clue about her finances and her mom doesn't give me what I want, or it takes forever. And that, of course, like usual clockwork, it's the daughter intervening because she's getting bad information, or alternatively, which is more often than not, because I'm a nice guy and easy to talk to with the clients, she thought, okay, well, I guess I'm having a bad day with my medical situation. Let me call this nice guy so I can shit on him. The good thing is I stood up for myself in that scenario, but what I have done over the years is I've just kind of, probably to my somewhat financial detriment, is at least in that practice area, is I pulled back from doing bankruptcies that much because I felt like I was exposing myself to more and more frequent opportunities for these negative situations to arise where I'd have to be combative. And I don't want to be, imagine a business where you have to be combative with somebody, right? Especially when you're charging them a low amount of money for the type of service you render and your knowledge base. And so that's a scenario where I didn't keep pushing and I didn't keep growing the bankruptcy practice. I actually started shutting it down to a degree, right? I started minimizing it and not taking on that type of clients, even though it meant making less money in that area. But it was fruitful because it meant a lot more mental peace. Now, unfortunately, I have to deal with other shit with the personal injury side of things in law, because now we have a higher volume, and people start acting crazy now, and with the political climate, everybody's a homegrown bully. But like yesterday, this one really pissed me off. This guy's not even a client, and he has a case that I don't really want, and he kept calling, and I told him we don't really want the case. And then finally yesterday, I took his call after a week. And I have no obligation to take his call, right? Like I already told him we're probably not going to take the case. What does he do? He's like, oh, thank God you answered, man. I know your time's really valuable. And he throws in there, he's like, for a second, I thought you were a bum attorney, but I know you're not like that. And I just went off and I'm like, oh yeah, we're all bum attorneys. And I'm thinking like, look at this emotion by that one stupid statement from this guy. Look at the emotion that he was able to draw out of me. And it made me realize I have a lot of rancor towards, a lot of these clients because of how they behave. Like it's just so disrespectful. Like, especially in the type of industry we do where we're not getting paid up front. And you have these people treating you like you're their slave. But that's why it's so important, especially in the legal industry, but just in life in general, to really work on not letting other people's emotions control yours. And the big way to do that is just try to like really think about how you feel that day when you wake up, if you feel good, and keep thinking about that. And look at everybody else as, especially in business, as a business transaction. And I'm not there yet. I still really humanize everybody. But and as such, unfortunately, it makes smaller things into bigger things for me. But I was talking with my partner yesterday, my legal partner, and he'd gone on a little trip and had some revelations himself. And even he was thinking like, man, I'd get involved in all these little things that would bring me down. And I was telling him, yeah, I was feeling the same way, when I need to really learn how to detach myself from the fact that this is just a business. It may be personal to the clients, but I can't take it personally. And similarly in your life, you have to learn that when somebody else that you're dealing with, personally or not personally, when things don't go the right way and somehow they're coming down on you, you have to learn how to just tell yourself, well, I think I did everything okay. It looks like they have some sort of problem in their life and now they're shitting on me for it, which is why it's very important in life. If you ever read the Four Agreements book, I only read this one chapter, but I thought it was useful, is to not take anything personally. And when you do that, you detach the ability for other people's emotions to control yours. Because you will never be, unless you want to live on a farm in some rural area and not have any friends and not even interact with anybody ever and become a recluse, which a lot of people become these days, frankly, after COVID especially. Unless you want to do that, it's going to be very hard for you to exist in society. Because with news cycles and whatever anybody's going through, there's always going to be some negativity. And they're always almost always going to want to dish it off onto somebody else. And if you're an empath and a highly sensitive person, you're generally going to find that people going through negative situations are usually going to direct that towards you, because you're wired to absorb, and they probably know, people generally know that about you. I know it sounds interesting, but they know that about you. They know that you're easy to absorb people's energy. So that's kind of all I wanted to say about that today. I wanted to keep the podcast under 15 minutes. This one went slightly over, but I hope you got something from this. And I do want to talk to you guys about Turkey in more depth. My last podcast, I said I'd talk more about my trips. I feel like I didn't do my trip to Turkey justice. So on the next podcast, I'm actually going to go through day by day what I did every day on my travel talk tour with Turkey. And you can decide if it's something or a place you want to travel to next as well. Have a great day. Great things are coming. Protect yourself out there. Don't take anything personally, and don't let other people's emotions control yours. Take it easy.